Okay, let's unpack this artificial intelligence. It feels like we're just in this constant sprint, doesn't it? New stuff popping up all the time.
It really does. Keeping track of what's actually significant can feel, well, overwhelming.
Totally. And not just the speed, but like you said, how fast it's moving from, labs into things we use every single day,
Exactly. Real-world applications.
which is why you're here for the deep dive. We've got this really interesting mix of sources you sent over articles, studies, even some pretty lively Reddit threads.
Mhm.
And our goal today is, well, to cut through all that noise. We want to pull out the key insights on where AI is right now, just for you.
Think of it as your curated briefing. We've waded through a whole stack of material: Android Police, Fox News, CBS, Brennan Center for Justice, Audio Express, The Conversation.
Right, and YouTube stuff too. TED, WKAR, Daniel Nunes, Como, PBS NewsHour,
Yeah.
and that Reddit discussion.
Yep, all of it. The mission is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Understand the AI landscape today. From phones to politics, society, what really matters.
Okay, ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's start with something tangible. The tech in our pockets.
Good call. That Android Police article comparing Google and Apple on AI, it really lays out two different paths, it seems.
It does. And what jumps out is Google seems focused on getting features out widely, maybe more robust core functions, whereas Apple, it feels more tied to specific newer hardware and even where you live.
Yeah, and maybe a bit more cautious. The photo editing bit was pretty telling. Magic Editor versus Cleanup.
Right.
The article basically said Magic Editor was, well, way better. Even on tricky photos. It wasn't even close.
Which suggests, that Google's underlying tech for that specific task might be more mature right now. The capability can really vary.
It really can. And then the transcription thing. Apple's new feature apparently stumbled with an Indian accent. U.S. English only, to start.
While Google Recorder, they say, handles different accents, even mixed languages, with like 80–90% accuracy. That's a massive difference in actual usability, right? It's huge. Language understanding, especially with diverse accents, is so key for these tools to be genuinely useful globally. Google's got a history there, clearly.
Definitely. And it's not just how well it works, but who gets it. Apple Intelligence needs the latest iPhone 15 Pro.
Later, yeah, and not in the EU currently.
Whereas Google's stuff works on older Pixels, even on iPhones, via the Gemini app. It's just much more accessible, different philosophies.
It really points to different strategies for adoption. Well, Google's aiming broader, Apple's more exclusive, at least initially.
Which kind of leads into that Reddit discussion on Apple Intelligence. Sounds like some users aren't exactly blown away.
No, that raw feedback is interesting. You see comments like, steaming pile of mess, a general feeling of being underwhelmed compared to the hype.
Yeah, and things like overheating, performance issues, maybe some early rollout bumps.
Could be. Peeping problems aren't unusual with big new software pushes like this.
And poor Siri still gets complaints, apparently. Even with the new AI, people feel it's lagging, features feel bolted on, maybe not working smoothly in apps like Messenger or WhatsApp.
That seamless integration is crucial. If it feels clunky or unreliable across apps, users notice. It needs to feel natural.
And here's an interesting point from Reddit. Someone's company blocks external LLMs, like OpenAI's models.
Oh, right.
So if the on-device AI needs to reach out to those cloud models for certain tasks, workplace policies could actually limit its functionality for some people. That's a real wind constraint.
That's a really important intersection. Corporate security versus personal tech features. Companies are wary of data going out, understandably.
There was also a vibe on Reddit that maybe Apple's playing catch-up in AI, reacting rather than leading with something totally new. And it begs the question, are people buying iPhones for the AI right now? Or are the usual things, ecosystem, design, brand, still the main drivers?
It's a fair question about their strategic position. Is AI the killer feature yet? Or is it still about the core Apple experience for most buyers? The sentiment suggests maybe the latter, for now.
All right, let's pivot a bit. Away from just consumer gadgets. Sasha Luccioni's TED Talk had a really powerful message, I thought.
Yeah, her point was that we should focus more on the current impacts of AI, environment, bias, data, rather than getting lost in, future robot takeover scenarios.
Exactly. Focus on the here and now. And one big here and now issue is the environmental cost.
Right. She mentioned switching to a bigger AI model for the same task could mean, what was it, 14 times more carbon
It's
emissions.
14 times. That's staggering. A hidden cost of progress, I guess.
It really highlights the energy footprint of these massive models. It's a growing concern as they get bigger and bigger.
And where does the training data come from? She talked about that have I been trained tool.
From spawning.ai, yeah. It lets you see if your data, maybe your photos or text, ended up in those huge data sets like LAION5B.
Which raises all sorts of questions about consent and control over our own digital stuff, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It makes that opaque training process a bit more visible.
Hmm.
Were you asked if your picture could be used to train an image generator? Probably not.
Her example of searching for Sasha images and getting mostly bikini pics, that shows the bias in the data itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the artist, Carlo Ortiz, suing over copyright. That's about creators' rights when their work is used for training without permission. Real legal implications.
Definitely. That lawsuit highlights the clash between AI training needs and copyright law. The fact that Spawning.ai is working with Hugging Face on opt-out tools is a positive step, giving creators more control.
Lucioni also really hammered home the bias issue, Dr. Joy Buolamwini's experience. Facial recognition, just not seeing her face unless she wore a white mask.
Yeah, and the wider finding that these systems often perform much worse for women of color. It's embedding discrimination right into the tech.
It's not theoretical. The Porcher Woodruff case, wrongly accused of carjacking because of flawed facial recognition used by police, that's devastating. Real people, real harm.
It's a chilling example of how algorithmic bias can have life-altering consequences in critical areas like law enforcement.
And sometimes we don't even know why it's happening, the black box problem, right? Even the creators might not fully grasp how the AI reaches certain conclusions.
Exactly. That lack of transparency makes it incredibly hard to diagnose and fix the biases baked into the system. If you can't see inside, how do you fix it?
Her Stable Bias Explorer tool sounds fascinating, showing how image generators associate professions with gender and race.
Yeah, visualizing that stark overrepresentation of white men in roles like CEO or doctor really drives the point home. It shows how AI can just amplify existing societal stereotypes.
Okay, let's shift again. This next area feels critical. AI and political information. We've got several sources pointing to some serious issues here.
It's a really complex area. The Brennan Center for Justice report points out generative AI makes creating political ads super cheap and easy now.
Which sounds good, maybe, but they highlight huge risks too.
Huge risks. Bad actors using it for voter suppression, inciting violence. That's the deliberate misuse.
Right. But also unintentional problems, like AI just making stuff up, hallucinations. They mentioned an AI image of a candidate with 3 arms.
Exactly. Or the AI creating subtly different, maybe contradictory messages for different voter groups, blurring the campaign's core stance. It gets messy fast.
That ChatGPT example of a generic political ad they showed, full of made-up promises and biased assumptions, it shows how easily it can generate junk, basically.
And it underscores the need for human oversight. You can't just let the AI run wild with political messaging.
The WKR news report seemed really concerned about the lack of regulation.
Yeah, that's a big theme. Plus, the ability of AI to crunch vast amounts of personal data to create hyper-targeted content.
That idea of AI-powered phone calls, harvesting really specific personal info at scale, that feels kind of dystopian.
It raises major ethical questions about privacy and manipulation in campaigning.
And it's changing the workflow, too. AI like ChatGPT replacing human writers to churn out tons of text variations quickly.
Right, efficiency gains, but maybe at the cost of authenticity or nuance.
Trying to fight AI-generated disinformation sounds like a nightmare, especially for smaller campaigns. WKAR mentions silicon swarms of fake news just overwhelming everything.
The scale and speed are the problem. How do you debunk thousands of AI-generated lies spreading instantly? Smaller players are definitely at a disadvantage.
And we're seeing this in real elections already. The UK example, questions about whether candidates even existed.
And the manipulated audio in Slovakia that apparently influenced the outcome. It's not hypothetical anymore.
Daniel Nunes's an essay took it even further, called AI a new nuclear weapon for disinformation.
Strong language, but his examples show why. Those weird AI images, the fake Chinese Elon Musk, that deepfake political meeting, it's about creating alternate realities.
And he explained how deepfakes are trained on tons of images and videos, making them scarily realistic.
The more data, the better the fake.
Yeah.
And the harder it is for anyone to tell what's real.
The specific examples are piling up. Fake audio of Biden, fake Taylor Swift endorsement of Trump, deep fakes of UK politicians like Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan.
Right. And AI avatars of deceased leaders in Indonesia, AI images attacking opponents in Argentina. It's global and varied.
Nunez's warning really stuck with me. How hard it is to diffuse this stuff once it's out there.
It spreads like wildfire online. Trying to put the genie back in the bottle is almost impossible.
And WKAR brought up the legal side. Regulating this stuff bumps up against First Amendment rights, especially anonymous political speech. It's legally tricky.
Very tricky. There's a long history of protecting anonymous speech in politics, which complicates efforts to regulate AI-generated content.
Here's a chilling potential side effect they mention.
Mm-hmm.
All this fakeness could just make people distrust everything. Even real negative info about a candidate might get dismissed as fake.
That's a huge danger. An erosion of trust across the board makes informed voting incredibly difficult. If you can't believe anything, how do you decide?
Okay, switching gears again. This PYMNTS article. Apple possibly ditching Google search as the default in Safari for AI search.
Wow.
That would be huge. Especially coming out of Eddie Q's testimony in the Google antitrust case. It signals a major potential shift.
$20 billion a year that Google deal is worth.
Exactly. So for Apple to even consider alternatives suggests they really believe AI search is the future. Q apparently noted a dip in Safari searches, blaming AI tools.
He thinks AI search providers OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic will eventually take over from traditional search engines like Google.
That seems to be his take now. And Apple's apparently already talking to Perplexity, planning to add these AI options to Safari. That's a big change from his previous skepticism about alternatives, apparently. Shows how fast things are moving.
It's a massive potential strategy change for Apple, given they've relied on Google since, 2007? With their huge user base, it could really shake up the search market.
Yeah, no wonder Alphabet and Apple stock dipped after that testimony.
And we know they've already got ChatGPT integrated with Siri, Gemini expected. They're clearly exploring multiple AI partnerships.
Which all ties into Apple Intelligence, their own branding. That Audio Express piece focused on it being on-device intelligence.
Right, leveraging their own Apple silicon. That's their big pitch.
Yeah.
Doing the AI work directly on your iPhone, iPad, or Mac.
Craig Federighi emphasized integrating AI with your personal context. Across devices. It's coming with iOS 18, iPadOS 18, macOS Sequoia. It's a system-wide push.
Definitely a unified strategy, using your personal data locally to make the AI more relevant and useful to you.
And the privacy angle is key, isn't it? Built with privacy from the ground up, because it's processed on your device, not mostly in the cloud.
That's their core differentiator, addressing those user concerns about data going off device.
They're also promising big Siri improvements. More natural language, better context, handling speech stumbles. And understanding what's on your screen. Sounds like Siri might finally become, well, more intelligent.
It's aiming to be more of an intuitive assistant, less of a basic command taker. A much-needed upgrade, many would say.
Plus those system-wide writing tools, rewriting, proofreading, summarizing in almost any app.
Yeah, and the on-device audio recording, transcription, and summarization. Embedding AI into everyday tasks seems to be the goal.
Making it seamless.
Exactly. Productivity enhancements across the board.
Okay, one last rather unusual story. The Pope-Trump AI image.
Yes. That's certainly caused a stir.
CBS, Fox, Como, all covered Cardinal Dolan's reaction. Pretty straightforward. Not good.
Yeah, it shows how AI images can hit sensitive nerves, religion, and politics combined.
The New York State Catholic Conference was stronger, calling it mocking, especially timing-wise, after Pope Francis passed and before the conclave.
Understandably, sensitive timing highlights the ethical side of generating and sharing this kind of content.
Trump's take was, well, different. Blamed the fake news, claimed Catholics loved it, suggested maybe AI made it, not him, and mentioned his wife thought it was cute. So definitely conflicting views on it.
His response fits his pattern. The different reactions show how subjective this stuff can be. Funny to some, offensive to others.
Fox also noted that divide. The Vatican didn't comment officially. The White House just said Trump respects the Vatican. And all this as the cardinals were gathering for the conclave. Odd timing.
Very odd timing. It just amplified the whole thing.
Just briefly, Kara Swisher on PBS NewsHour offered some broader context, too.
Right. Her historical view on tech booms and her cautionary tone about AI now. Need for regulation, user control over data, learning from past mistakes, basically.
She even agreed with Elon Musk's wild prediction, AI being 99% of intelligence eventually.
But with huge warnings. If it's unregulated, we could see problems similar to, or worse than, social media's downsides.
Yeah, she called for specific things. algorithmic transparency laws, antitrust action, rules for kids, and AI. Her point was, this AI wave feels bigger, more fundamental than past tech shifts.
It's a call for proactive governance. Don't wait for the problems to explode, basically.
So, wrapping this all up, quite a journey through the current AI landscape. What are the big takeaways for you?
Well, definitely the contrasting strategies between, say, Google and Apple in consumer tech, that's one. The very real environmental and data privacy costs of training AI, that's two.
Right.
The critical issue of bias, how it leads to real harm. The complex and, frankly, dangerous role AI is starting to play in politics and disinformation. Apple's potential move into AI search, shaking up that market, and just the overarching societal impact. It touches everything.
It really does. AI isn't some sci-fi future thing anymore. It's here. It's shaping the photos we edit, the news we see, maybe even our elections.
Right, exactly. It's woven into the present in so many ways, big and small.
So, maybe the final thought for you, listening, is this. Given how fast AI is moving, how deeply it's getting embedded, what's our role? What's our responsibility as individuals, as a society, in steering this?
Yeah, it's not something happening to us passively. We need to engage with these ethical, environmental, societal questions we've talked about.
Keep asking questions, keep learning the direction AI goes. Well, it really depends on the choices we're making now, doesn't it?